We've been talking about it for months now, but that final 10-game gauntlet for the Mariners season starts today. 3 teams are going into this gauntlet basically tied in the standings for first place in the division and also vying for a spot in the wild card for the 2 teams that don't win the division. I don't think there's any possible way that we could have expected it was going to end up like this, but it is perfect. It's a clean slate, 10 games, playoffs start today for the Seattle Mariners. But what would it look like if it all went right for the Mariners, if they were to go on to win the World Series? And what do the Mariners need to do in these 10 games to make that a possibility? Obviously, series starting today versus the Texas Rangers, you have to take care of business. You have 3 games in Texas before returning home for a 7-game homestand, with 3 against the Astros and then 4 against the Rangers again. Now, the Mariners are 1-5 against the Rangers this year. They do not own that tiebreaker, but they do own the tiebreaker with the Astros. So first, if it all goes right, let's just talk about the division. Obviously, in a perfect world, you go 10-0. That's probably not going to happen. Could you imagine, though? Just with me really sec. Yeah, 10-0. You hear that serene music? 10-0. Now that we're back to reality, really, you just want to win series. You just want to win these next 3 series, win 2 games versus Texas, 2 versus the Astros, and then 3 games versus Texas. That would put you at 7-3 the rest of the way. If you go 7-3 the rest of the season, you're in the playoffs and you probably won the division. But if the Mariners are going to lose a series, it needs to be to the Houston Astros because they already have that tiebreaker with them. And if you lose a series to the Houston Astros, okay, maybe you don't win the division, but you probably make your way into the wild card if you win both series against the Texas Rangers. To break the tiebreaker with the Texas Rangers, you need to go 6-1. And that's not going to matter because if you go 6-1 versus the Rangers, they're not in the playoffs anyway. So let's just throw the tiebreaker out right now. It's really unlikely that the tiebreaker is going to matter whatsoever because the Rangers and Mariners basically play each other the rest of the season, except the Rangers do have a 3-game series versus the Angels, and of course, the Mariners have a 3-game series versus the Astros. Game 1, you have Bryce Miller versus Dane Dunning, a couple of righties on the mound with sub-4 ERAs. Miller has been quite good through this season as a rookie, but he has struggled a little bit more in the second half of the season. In 64 innings pitched, Bryce Miller's given up a 274, 318, 452 slash line. He's given up 8 home runs with 27 earned runs, although his ERA is lower than it was in the first half. Against this Rangers lineup, Bryce Miller did not fare well the last time that he faced him. He gave up 7 runs, and as you can see, as a team, the Rangers hit 533 off of him in that game. The Rangers are a very good offensive team. They're going to be hunting the fastball versus Bryce Miller, but ideally, Bryce Miller can get you 5, maybe 6 innings, and then you can turn it over to the best parts of that bullpen, including Gabe Spire, Justin Topa, Matt Brash, and Andres Munoz. Every single one of those guys should be fresh. They've all had plenty of time off over the last week or so. I think at this point, it's go time. It doesn't matter. These guys, if you need them, they're going. Bases are loaded, no outs, bottom of the 7th inning. Yeah, you're going to Andres Munoz. I don't care if he pitched the day before. He needs to go. As for Dane Dunning, he's had a rough go of it in the second half. In 65 innings pitched, he has a 5.12 ERA with a 282 batting average against, 354 OBP. He's given up 13 home runs in 65 innings. And throughout their career, the Mariners have fared quite well against Dunning. They have scored 7 runs versus him. They have a 280 average with a 341 OBP. So again, this is a lineup that the Mariners could be rolling out against Dunning that we could see them really catch fire here in this first game. For this series specifically, you need to get out to a hot start. Bryce Miller needs to pitch deep, and Logan Gilbert does the next day as well, because Brian Wu, we all know how it went for him in his Major League debut versus Texas. Of course, this is a completely different team, but again, Brian Wu, do you skip him and maybe have Luis Castillo pitch that day? I'm not sure. We'll obviously wait and see. Maybe you already know by the time you're watching this, but you need to win 2 of 3 in this series. You can go 1-2, but you really need to win this series. If you get swept, your season's probably over. You need to win out. If you get swept, you need to win out. Plain and simple. If the rotation stays as it is right now, you would have Luis Castillo and George Kirby and Bryce Miller going in the Astros series, which would mean at the end of the year, in the last series of the year against the Rangers, you would then have Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, Luis Castillo, and George Kirby to finish out the year. Of course, the Mariners pitching staff has been really good this year, the lowest ERA in baseball. But with that being said, it's going to be a really tough few games for them. Hopefully the off days have done them well. But again, go 7-3, you're in the playoffs. Go 6-4, you're probably in the playoffs. Can you go 5-5 and make the playoffs? Yes, but you need a lot of those losses to come against the Astros, not against the Rangers. So If it all goes right for the Mariners the rest of the way, they win each of these series. If you do that, the Seattle Mariners are in the playoffs and they probably won the American League West for the first time since 2001. These last 10 games are going to be an absolute dogfight. I'm super excited, super nervous, want to throw up, but also want to jump for joy. Such a weird time, but such a fun time to be a Mariners fan. And looking ahead at this schedule, all three of these teams have a fatal flaw. And Joe and I talked about that in this week's episode of the Hit It Here podcast. On the screen now, go ahead and check that one out. Appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.